Good afternoon. This is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, and this is the show that's trying to make the world safe for ADHD. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist in private practice. I treat a whole bunch of ADHD kids and adults. At this stage of the game, I'm mostly doing evaluations. And I'm also the parent of an ADHD adult now. And as I am frequently commenting, I went through an APA, American Psychological Association approved academic program in clinical psychology and never once heard a thing about attention deficit disorder. Nothing. Zero. Nada. So when we started having some concerns about my young man, I didn't know exactly where to look. So it was a long and sometimes painful process of trying to find information about ADHD, what it is, how it presents, what causes it, dip-de-dip, all that. Of course, now we've got research going like crazy, like we never have had before, and we know so much more than we ever did before. And it's getting fairly well publicized so that almost everybody who wants to can find out all about ADHD. We still have the occasional, it's just little boys being too exuberant and he's just full of energy, he'll grow out of it. Point of fact, if you've got ADHD, it's pretty much a lifetime thing. And if you've got it, you're probably going to give it to one or more of your children, because it is highly heritable. It has an 85% heritability index, which is incredibly high, and it means if you have a child with ADHD, you have beaucoup blood relatives that also have ADHD. Whether they've ever been diagnosed or not, that's beside the point, but they do have it. Okay? And one of the things I get a lot is people being afraid to put their kids on ADHD medications, on the stimulants and the alpha agonists for that matter, but they're just, I don't put my kid on drugs. Well, what can I tell you? If you have a child with ADHD and you do not treat them, life becomes a great deal more difficult for them. Just the routines of getting through school, trying to get a high school education at least, that's a huge problem if you have ADHD that's not being treated. So it is important to treat the stuff, okay? It is important. Kids who are treated at a younger age have a better result than folks who wait until they're in their 20s to start being treated. I see that all the time. I know I've talked about this before. My big frustration is, having somebody who's in their late 20s or early 30s and said, well, I think I had ADHD when I was a kid, or no, I never knew I had ADHD or might have ADHD, but now my boss thinks I should get this looked at because I might have it. Or basically, you got people close to 30 years of age who are just getting sick of being divorced, being in breakups, being fired, all the kind of things that tend to happen to folks with ADHD who are not being treated, who have not learned compensatory strategies, don't have medications that help them control the symptoms of the disorder, and so on. The other thing that tends to happen to folks who don't get treatment is they are way more prone to substance abuse issues. Okay? Now, A lot of people think, oh, well, you start them off on Ritalin and then that just leads them, this whole gateway drug thing. Frankly, I don't think there is any such thing. If you like drugs, you like drugs. If you start using them, you'll use all of them as fast as you can. It's not like you get tricked into starting on using drugs and then kind of once you get started, you just can't help yourself and you go on to all of them. The scientific facts are that being on an appropriately diagnosed stimulant medication does not make you more prone to substance abuse. The thing about the kinds of medications that are used to treat ADHD is that they are relatively slow working. I think I saw in an article somewhere, like it takes over an hour before the Ritalin, say, or Concerta or whatever you're on, increases the brain's dopamine. Versus if you are snorting cocaine, the effect is like pretty darn close to instantaneous. That's what leads to addiction. Is that rapid high is what leads to addiction. The slow acting stuff doesn't give you the rush that tends to lead to addiction. Anyway, other things about drugs of abuse. Why would ADHDers be more prone to addiction, especially if they're not being treated? Well, think about what ADHDers are like. They're impulsive. They're action-oriented. They're impatient. Think of your favorite symptoms otherwise. They're not fitting in very well in school, probably. They're having issues getting through their basic education. Somebody offers them something that will ease the pain, if you will. Why not? I mean, that's exactly what they're thinking. Okay? Just those characteristics make it more likely that ADHDers will abuse substances. And then another part of it is that having ADHD is not really particularly comfortable. Because you're always in situations where you have to do stuff you don't really want to do, or you're in trouble because you didn't do stuff you were supposed to do, and so on and so on. Drugs, most of the substances of abuse will increase dopamine levels, which is what most of ADHDers are looking for. And you get that going up a little bit, you actually feel better. Okay? I don't know how many kids I've had, and come to think of it, adults in my office who've said, man, the only time I felt normal or relaxed at all was when I was smoking marijuana. Okay, makes sense. And I don't know, we're in the throes of legalization, so I'm not sure what to say exactly about that long term. But I just, the character structure of an ADHDer makes them more likely to be willing to try an illegal substance. And then the physiology of the ADHD brain makes them look for something that will substitute, that will treat basically it's dopamine that's lacking in their brains. So it makes perfect sense in a couple of ways. So what you want is a parent, especially if you're the parent of a teenager, because we're pretty sure that teenagers are more likely to abuse substances, and that's where most of them will start abusing substances. So if you've got a teenager, you want to make sure that they are being treated properly. They, I mean, the easiest people to work with are the ones who were identified when they were in second or third grade, have been on medication for years, and have pretty much figured out how to compensate, when to do what, to get through school, and so on. The hardest ones are the ones that are 16 years old or so, have never been diagnosed, have gotten a rotten attitude towards school, mostly because school is so painful for them. And guess what? They are also way more likely to be the ones who start abusing other substances. But if you've identified your child early, if you've started treatment early, if you stick with the treatment, and of course, as a parent, your job, you got an extra job that other parents don't have. You got to learn about ADHD. You've got to read about it. You got to study it. You got to know what's real and what isn't real. You got to know what the science says about it, and stay away from the magic pills, because they're poofda. They don't really do the job, but they will do a great job of taking your money. So treat the disorder, treat it as fast as you can. Get it identified, get them on treatment, learn all about ADHD as much as you can. And this is your best shot at keeping your child from becoming a substance abuser as an adolescent and so on. So I could go on, and I probably have already, but it's kind of an important distinction to make, that you have to, that the medications you're using to treat ADHD are unlikely to result in abuse. Okay, I mean, you can find ways to do all kinds of things, but if we're on a medically prescribed regimen, we're taking it as directed, there should be no problems, and it certainly doesn't lead to further substance abuse. As I've said before, it basically makes it less likely that your child will become a substance abuser. But also, don't be naive. Be on the lookout. Be aware. Just pay attention. They act different. They act different when they're stoned. They act different when they're using stuff. And some parents are real sophisticated about drug use, and some not at all. Most of us are probably more familiar with alcohol use, and have seen people who are drunk and know how to recognize those signs. But how does your kid look when he's smoking pot? Or how does he look when he's using cocaine? You need to find that out. You need to be looking for those kinds of things. And you don't want to be naive. You don't want to just assume, can't happen to my kid. Because it can. And having ADHD makes it slightly more likely. And the best defense you've got, first of all, is to make sure they've been properly evaluated and treated. It'll make it much less likely that they're going to go into some kind of substance abuse. And I think that's about as many times as I can beat that same horse. Okay? Having your child on appropriate medication for ADHD makes it less likely that your child will try other substances of abuse, recreational drugs, and so on. Okay, I'm Dr. Terry James Gimgrass. This is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, trying to make the world safe for ADHD. And remember, your child is an outside-the-box thinker. And those are the folks who change the world. So maybe your child will be the one that will solve, who knows, global warming. If so, think about all the good things that would mean for society as a whole. So, encourage your child's creativity and take good care of them. Okay, we'll catch you next time. Oh, I'm going to be at a conference next week, so I'll probably miss next Sunday. But if I get a chance to, I'll try to. I'm going to be jet lagged out of my mind, but I'll try. Okay, and remember, somewhere around here you can make comments, and if you've got anything you'd like me to discuss or provide some input on, by all means, let me know. Thank you. We will catch you later.